Hi guys, and women of course. I will use guys. Vitaly Gaiman here, and I'm going to ask Denisa here today to explain to us her concept of knowledge, why knowledge is not what it seems, at least in today's society, because she has like an interesting theory, and I believe it's pretty much a practice too. Denisa, welcome, and explain us your knowledge theorem.
Hello, everybody. Well, I'd like to start by quoting Peter Drucker. I think in German we call him Drucker, who wrote and studied a lot regarding knowledge. And he said that, well, nowadays we're long not living in the industrial era, but in a knowledge society. And the main resource we have is actually knowledge. When we think of successful companies nowadays, it's about companies that introduced innovations, be it incremental or even disruptive innovation, something really new that made a little or a bigger revolution. And now there's also management, this under discipline of knowledge management. In there, the knowledge is really well managed, something like knowledge creation, knowledge sharing, knowledge storage. And from this discourse, from this theory, it sounds like knowledge would be a sort of material product. It's an analogy with a good that can be created, shared, transported. And from my perspective, I see it rather than sort of network that is spread along different actors in a group, in a society, and strongly influenced by values and by the way discourses are structured.
You mentioned something around, it's like a bucket that we share.
Yeah.
Knowledge is, or I think is before you said it's like a bucket of something we share versus, can you explain that?
I thought of that because I heard it a lot in my work experience. It's something like, yeah, we need to train that person. We have all this training material here, and he will read that or she will read that. They will get a training, and then they know how to do it. And that's a very mechanical and materialistic way of seeing knowledge as a finished block of something. And I think that's not valid in our context nowadays. We have limited knowledge. There's much more to know that we haven't reached yet. So we have to be modest with it. And then we all have our way of understanding things and our capacities that can be limited. There's communication in knowledge sharing, and communication has biases and can be disturbed by a lot of factors. And we have our own filters based on values, so that we can just ignore some content because to us it's not worth noticing that. And to others it could be very relevant. So it can be even a cultural filter in between. There are different forms of knowledge. We're nowadays in a discourse where technology has a very important role, and we think that everything that technology produces, this is the real knowledge. And it's also about a very explicit form of knowledge that can be written down. And we tend to ignore how much knowledge people carry within them as implicit. A knowledge that sometimes we can't even explain ourselves.
Yeah. That is so important, because what that means both to leaders and human learning and development executive HR is that if we redefine our knowledge, perspective on knowledge, then it's much deeper than just overt explicit knowledge. It also includes the culture and the context of organization.
Yes.
Right.
and our assumption as well. When we talk to a business partner, maybe at the beginning of the discussion, if we never met that person before, we don't know exactly what they know and what shall I explain them from the very beginning, and do we have any common ground at all? Or if people in a, let's say, business meeting come from teams with different specializations, something like an accountant talks to an engineer, they see a product from very different perspectives to the point that they won't understand each other. So that's this subjective way of having knowledge on something.
Right, which means that when as a leadership and change management agents in a corporate or knowledge practitioners who try to trainers and so on, we really need a different view of what knowledge is and different tools of how to disseminate knowledge, particularly in a high-tech kind of VUCA, volatile environment where we need to learn really fast. We really don't have the time for 5 years to learn something. We have months. And so if our culture is not if we don't take into account the cultural inhibitions of learning, then we're actually jeopardizing the whole company by not understanding it.
Yeah, I think by relating to each other, this makes us more easy to have a common ground in communicating and then sharing knowledge or creating something new.
Beautiful, yeah, I understand. So, like, example, you give me a good idea. If we already have a good relationship, then, for example, we can disseminate and distribute knowledge much faster if we have much more the serial relationship, right?
Yeah, and let me put an even more provocative thesis on now. That is, we are paid generally. We are paid for knowing. We are not paid for not knowing. But if we're honest to ourselves, creating knowledge or using knowledge is getting something from the unknown into something that you know and put it in a practical form into a product or sort of service, software application. There is a transformation process from something that is ambiguous, uncertain, into something that gets onto a clear path. And we seldom think that the status of we don't know it yet, that's normal, that's the beginning. We think of the point where we already are knowledgeable about something.
Wow. Well, that's unpacking, and we don't even know what we don't know. So that's the whole other thing. We're literally blank sometimes, and we have to create something out of nothing, and we're not allowing, people don't allow the space for that to happen. They don't pay for that. They want an expert or instantaneous experts, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And what I experience in my work is that sometimes there's a sort of mixture of things that I really know and I'm sure of. Then there are things that, well, I'm kind of sure of, but they might be wrong. And others, well, I have to admit it's really not in my scope of expertise. Yeah. And there's a whole mixture of these. We need to play and to find a balance between all these aspects. And I think that's typical for the VUCA world, for this world full of uncertainties. And when there's this concept, you have to fail every day nowadays. You can't plan for a long term, not even for middle term or for short term. And it's a little bit more like trial and error. Let's see what it works, and we'll find it in time. That's also fighting with the unknown, or with what we may know or maybe not know.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. We'll end on that note. Wow, what exciting. That was a very exciting conversation, and we could go on forever, but we'll try to end it here, and then maybe in the future we'll look at what we don't know and explore that one further.
Yeah.
Thank you, Denisa.
That's right. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.